Emma Carter had learned how to live with silence. 3 years had passed since her husband Daniel died. Yet every corner of her small suburban home still felt shaped by his absence. The mornings were predictable, coffee by the window, watching neighbors rush to work, while she stayed behind in a world that moved slower than everyone else's. The afternoons belonged to her garden, where she trimmed roses and spoke softly to plants as if they could hear her thoughts. Evenings were the hardest. The quiet stretched long after sunset, filling the rooms with memories she never invited but could never escape. Life was calm, safe, and lonely. And Emma had convinced herself that this was enough. That Thursday evening began like any other. Rain tapped steadily against the windows, turning the sky gray and heavy. Emma stood in the kitchen preparing soup, the soft sound of a radio playing old songs in the background. She wasn't expecting visitors. Most people had slowly stopped dropping by after the first year of grief. Friends assumed she needed space, and eventually, space became permanent. When the knock came, she froze. It was gentle, almost uncertain, as if the person outside wasn't sure they should be there. Emma waited, thinking maybe she imagined it. Then it came again, clearer this time. She walked toward the door slowly, wiping her hands on a towel, her heart beating faster for reasons she didn't understand. Through the glass panel, she saw a man she didn't recognize. He stood politely on the porch, rain soaking his coat, his posture careful and respectful. Emma opened the door halfway. Yes. The man offered a small, nervous smile. Mrs. Carter. Yes. My name is Michael Bennett. I knew your husband. Daniel's name landed heavily in the air. Emma hadn't heard a stranger say it in years. For a moment, she simply stared, unsure whether to feel comforted or protective of her memories. Something in Michael's expression, sincere, slightly uneasy, convinced her he meant no harm. It's raining, she said quietly, stepping aside. You should come in. Michael thanked her and entered carefully, as though afraid of disturbing something sacred. His eyes moved around the living room, noticing framed photographs and familiar objects without staring too long. Emma sensed he understood this house still belonged partly to the past. She gestured toward a chair while she prepared tea. The simple act of hosting someone felt unfamiliar, almost strange. When she returned, Michael held a small leather journal in both hands. I believe this belongs to you, he said. Emma recognized it instantly. Daniel's journal. The brown leather cover was worn at the edges, exactly as she remembered. During the last year of his life, Daniel carried it everywhere, writing late at night or during quiet mornings. After his death, Emma searched for it, but never found it. I thought it was gone forever, she whispered, taking it gently. Michael nodded. He left it at our office years ago. The company closed and some belongings were placed in storage. I recently helped sort through old files and found it. Emma ran her fingers across the cover, memories rushing back. Daniel sitting at the table writing. Daniel smiling when she teased him about keeping secrets in notebooks. Daniel promising someday she could read it. Thank you, she said sincerely. You have no idea what this means. Michael hesitated as if deciding whether to say more. Emma noticed tension in his posture. How did you know him? She asked. We worked together in Chicago, he explained. We spent long hours on projects. He talked a lot during late nights at the office. Emma smiled faintly. He always worked too much. Michael gave a soft laugh. Yes, but he cared deeply about everything he did. The conversation felt surprisingly easy. They shared small stories about Daniel, harmless memories that made Emma laugh for the first time in weeks. Hearing news stories about her husband felt like discovering hidden pieces of someone she loved. Yet, Michael seemed distracted, as though holding back something important. Finally, he placed his cup down carefully. There's something else I should tell you, he said. Emma's stomach tightened. What is it? He chose his words slowly. During those years, Daniel went through a difficult time. He often felt lost. He talked about pressure, about not wanting to disappoint anyone. Emma listened quietly. None of this sounded shocking. Marriage had its struggles, and Daniel had always been private about stress. Michael continued gently. He spoke about you with love, always with respect. But sometimes he felt he couldn't share his worries at home because he wanted to protect you. The statement left Emma unsettled. She had believed they shared everything. The idea that Daniel hid emotional struggles felt unfamiliar. I wish he had talked to me, she said softly. Michael nodded. I think he wished that too. The rain slowed outside, leaving the house wrapped in calm silence. Emma realized she didn't want the conversation to end, for the first time in years. Someone spoke about Daniel, not with sympathy, but with understanding. When Michael stood to leave, she felt unexpected disappointment. Thank you again, she said, walking him to the door. He paused. I hope my visit wasn't upsetting. Emma replied honestly. It was nice. He smiled, relieved. If you ever want to hear more stories about him, I'd be happy to visit again. The words surprised her, yet they felt right. I'd like that. After he left, Emma locked the door and returned to the living room, the journal resting heavily in her hands. The house felt different now, less frozen in time, as if the past had quietly stepped back inside. She sat on the couch and opened the journal. The first pages were ordinary. Work notes, daily thoughts, reminders about groceries and meetings. She smiled at Daniel's familiar handwriting, but as she turned more pages, the tone shifted. The writing became deeper, more emotional. Daniel described exhaustion, uncertainty, and a growing feeling of loneliness he struggled to explain. He wrote about wanting to be strong for Emma while secretly feeling lost himself. Emma frowned, her chest tightening. She had never noticed this side of him. One sentence made her stop completely. I made a mistake by searching for understanding outside instead of speaking honestly at home. Emma closed the journal immediately. Her heart racing, she didn't yet understand what he meant. But the words carried weight. Questions filled her mind, questions she never imagined asking about her marriage. Had Daniel been unhappy? Had she missed signs? The quiet house suddenly felt unfamiliar. Outside, streetlights flickered on as evening deepened. Emma sat motionless, realizing grief had protected her from certain truths. Loving memories were simple, but real relationships were complicated. Across town, Michael Bennett sat alone in his parked car, staring at his phone. He wondered whether bringing the journal had been the right decision. He respected Daniel's memory, yet he believed Emma deserved honesty, even if it brought discomfort. He thought about her expression, strong yet fragile, kind yet guarded. There was loneliness in her eyes he recognized because he carried the same loneliness himself. Back inside her home, Emma placed the journal on the table but couldn't walk away from it. The past she believed she understood was slowly changing shape. The knock on her door had done more than return a lost belonging. It had reopened emotions she had carefully sealed away, and as she stared at the journal, Emma sensed that the story of her marriage, and perhaps her future, was far from finished. Emma Carter's house had always been quiet, but lately the silence felt heavier than usual. Since her husband Daniel had passed away 3 years ago, she had fallen into a rhythm of solitude. Mornings were predictable coffee by the kitchen window, staring at the rain-slicked streets outside, watching people hurry past as she stayed behind, lost in memories. Afternoons were spent tending her small garden, talking to roses and tulips as if they could understand her thoughts, trimming branches and pulling weeds with the precision of someone trying to control the little things left in her life. Evenings were the hardest. The quiet stretched across the rooms, echoing in ways that made her heart ache. She read books but often couldn't finish them because thoughts of Daniel kept crowding her mind. Life was orderly, safe, and painfully lonely. She had convinced herself that this quiet life, filled with routines and memories, was enough. That Thursday, rain tapped against the windows steadily, a soft, constant rhythm that matched the emptiness she felt inside. Emma was in the kitchen, chopping vegetables for dinner, humming softly to the radio, when she heard a knock. Soft, tentative, almost uncertain. She froze, her knife hovering over the cutting board. Visitors were rare these days. Friends had stopped calling, neighbors had stopped stopping by, and most people had assumed she wanted to be alone. She waited, thinking maybe she imagined it. Then it came again, slightly louder. A deliberate knock, polite but insistent. Emma wiped her hands on a towel and walked toward the door slowly, her heart beating faster than usual. Through the glass panel, she saw a man she did not recognize. He was tall, wearing a dark coat dampened by the rain. His posture was careful, respectful, and slightly hesitant, like someone entering a place that wasn't theirs. She opened the door halfway, her voice steady despite the sudden flutter in her chest. "Yes, Mrs. Carter?" he asked, his voice gentle. "Yes. My name is Michael Bennett," he said. I knew your husband." Daniel's name hit her like a weight she hadn't felt in years. Hearing it from a stranger was jarring. For so long, the world had stopped mentioning him. Friends avoided the topic, fearing they might upset her. But this man, standing in the rain at her doorstep, spoke his name as if it belonged there, as if it were still alive. Emma hesitated, unsure what to say. Something in Michael's expression told her he meant no harm. He looked polite, cautious, almost nervous. "It's raining," she said quietly, stepping aside. "Come in." Michael thanked her and stepped inside, his shoes silent on the hardwood floor. His eyes wandered briefly, noting the photographs on the wall, the guitar leaning in the corner, the remnants of a life once shared. He did not stare. He did not pry. Emma sensed respect in the way he carried himself. She gestured toward the kitchen table. "Would you like some tea?" He nodded. While she poured it, he placed something small and leather-bound on the table. Emma's breath caught. She recognized it immediately. Daniel's journal. The worn leather cover, the familiar edges. The slightly faded ink. This was the book he had carried everywhere during the last year of his life. She had searched for it after he died, but it was gone. "I thought it was lost," she whispered, reaching for it with trembling hands. Michael gave a small, rueful smile. He left it at the office before he got sick. The company closed and it stayed in storage. "I only found it recently and thought you should have it." Emma ran her fingers over the cover, memories flooding back. Daniel sitting at the table writing, his pen scratching softly against the paper. His smile when she teased him about keeping secrets. She had always loved this little ritual, and now it returned to her in a mix of joy and sorrow. "Thank you," she said. Her voice was quiet but full of meaning. "You have no idea how much this means to me." Michael hesitated, then spoke carefully. "I also wanted to tell you something about Daniel. Something I wasn't sure if you needed to hear, but I think honesty matters." Emma felt a prickle of unease. "What is it?" "Daniel struggled," Michael began. "During those years, he often felt lost, disconnected. He cared deeply about you, but sometimes he didn't know how to share his fears. He kept a lot inside to protect you." Emma's chest tightened. She thought about the times she had felt him distant, moments when he seemed withdrawn without explanation. The idea that he had hidden his struggles not out of malice but out of love made her ache. Michael continued, his voice soft and measured. He wanted to be strong, to carry everything on his own, but he often felt alone even when he was surrounded by people who loved him. The room was quiet except for the rain, now slowing to a drizzle. Emma listened, feeling a mix of sorrow and relief. Finally, she spoke. "I wish he had told me. I wish I could have helped." Michael nodded. "I think he wished the same." For the first time in years, Emma laughed quietly, a small, surprised sound. They spoke about Daniel, about his work in Chicago, the projects he loved, the moments of humor and kindness that had slipped through her memory. Michael spoke not as a stranger, but as someone who had known Daniel deeply, and Emma found herself grateful for his presence. He did not intrude on her grief, but shared a connection she had thought she would never have again. When Michael stood to leave, Emma felt a twinge of disappointment. She had not expected to enjoy someone else's company, yet she realized she did. "Thank you for coming," she said, and "You're welcome to visit again if you like." Akko smiled, a warm, cautious smile. "I'd like that," he said. After he left, Emma closed the door and sat down with the journal in her lap. The house felt different now, less frozen in time. She opened it slowly. The first pages were familiar, notes about groceries, work reminders, sketches, and little observations. She smiled faintly, recognizing Daniel's handwriting, the small doodles he sometimes added in the margins. But as she read further, the tone changed. Daniel wrote about exhaustion, about feelings he had never voiced, about moments of doubt and fear he kept hidden. One entry made her pause. He wrote about seeking understanding outside his home, about emotional mistakes he had made, and about regret. There were no confessions of betrayal or scandal, only a raw, honest look at a heart that had been struggling to cope with grief, stress, and fear of failure. The realization struck Emma deeply. She had never truly known all the burdens he carried. And in a way, that distance had grown quietly between them. The weight of the journal settled in her hands. She closed it, feeling the heaviness in her chest. The past she thought she understood now seemed more complex, more human. The silence that had once comforted her now felt different. A reminder of love, loss, and the things left unsaid. Outside, the rain had stopped and the streetlights flickered on, casting long shadows across the porch. Emma remained seated, the journal closed, thinking about Daniel's life, his struggles, and the subtle truths that